Hi everyone, this is Isaac Steincamp and I'm back on the Chess Summit Network. And for today's video, I wanted to add another video to my live chess series, and already I'm in a pretty interesting game. My opponent started out with the bird's opening and has now played c4, so not a typical bird structure. So in a position like this, especially when you have a short time control, it's just really important to make sure that you stay on your toes and you make solid positional moves. So what exactly is my opponent's plan? Well, he could play d4, knight c3, e4, make it a 4 pawns attack against the king's Indian. He could play e3 and d3, but that's somewhat passive, maybe giving me some play on the d5 square or on the e5 square. But other than that, the c4 move, if it is theory, it doesn't belong this early. And the reason why is now both of these bishops are kind of awkward. He's probably going to have to fianchetto both of his bishops in order to get any play if he's not playing for e4 and d4. So in these kinds of positions, it's really important to play solid chess. I'm just going to complete my fianchetto here. Bishop to g7. And black doesn't really have anything to worry about. Unlike my opponent, I haven't really made any sort of positional weaknesses. While I haven't moved my center pawns and I don't have weak central squares, already white has to worry about the e4 and the d4 squares, and it's quite unclear as to how he's going to handle that. So okay, in this position, I'm not quite sure what my opponent's plan is, but based on how he's developing, I think best for him would probably be play e4 and then d3, or then e4 and then d4. So in both of those lines, I want to make sure I have a way to play in the center. And for me, being a Sicilian player against e4, I'm going to play d6, maybe to prepare c5 if my opponent doesn't go for d3 immediately, or d4 immediately, and kind of see what happens. My opponent's kind of playing a little bit awkwardly, but I don't really think there's too much to worry about. Okay, with e4, okay, so there's no threat here of e5, right? Because if d takes e5, f takes e5, he has a hyperextended pawn. I think I can just play like knight to d7 in those lines, and if he plays d4, I can play like knight b6, knight c6 maybe, or pawn c6 and then bishop g4. I'm not too worried about that, but it's unclear where I want to put my light squared bishop. I don't want to castle just yet. See, this is a little bit different than the standard 4 pawns attack because usually white hasn't committed the knight. So I think I want to see if he plays d4, but I want to make the safest transposition. So I think the easiest way to do that would be to play bishop to g4, just to kind of see what he does. Again, this is a very sensible move. It doesn't really commit to anything. If my opponent plays d4, then I know what I'm doing. I'll just play c5 and bust open the center. Okay, bishop e2. This is fairly passive, but he's paying the price now for having played the c4 move so early. This bishop doesn't have exactly a better square. But now that my opponent's kind of all wound up here and hasn't really completed the center development, I'm just going to play c5. And then if things go right, I'll play knight c6. If he plays d4, I think I'll just maintain the tension in castles. It's hard for white to have any concrete play here. Perhaps another idea for me is to play knight c6 and then knight d4 after taking on f3 and see how he tries to punish me for taking his d4 outpost so early, since these two pawns are next to each other like this. So okay, so yeah, d3. So essentially, if I can win this d4 square and have a piece on this d4 square, I'm a happy camper. But usually in these lines, I used to play a setup like this as white. This bishop really needs to be fianchettoed, so I really feel like he played the wrong move order. And because it's not fianchettoed, that gives me a little bit more flexibility on the queen side. I don't have to make all these careful moves to make sure I'm not getting hit with some tactic of e5 and then having this bishop have a discovery. Now, I'm not quite sure what my opponent wants to do with his king. You see, I could castle, but my opponent doesn't have to castle. He could just play bishop e3 and continue normal development, and then castle queenside. And the reason why this is important is then if he decides to play h3 and then g4, I've committed my king to the king side. And I don't think I want to do that just yet. So I think the most sensible thing to do is to just develop, play knight c6. I've developed all of my pieces. I'm kind of asking him, hey, what are you going to do about this bishop on c1? But I also want to see where he castles. If he plays h3, I'm not really worried about trading this bishop for the knight on f3. Again, this is a critical defender of the square on d4. And if at the right time, if he doesn't let me do that, I could maybe play knight d7 and then play knight to d4. But the other thing about this position is because of this exposed dark squared diagonal, it might benefit me to go for some sort of Benoni plan, castling knight e8, knight c7, a6, b5. and then just push and open up this dark square diagonal. And it's not quite clear how white's going to get any concrete play when a move like f5 doesn't really offer too much. You'll find that when playing in these Sicilian dragon positions, these fianchettoed kingside pawns are the stronghold of your position, meaning that it's really hard to break them without having a lot of time. And I don't think with this setup, white's going to get the time that he needs. Okay, so white plays bishop to e3. The advantage to having played this move now is I don't have knight to g4, which is maybe a concession I made when I played bishop to g4, but I've still managed to develop all of my pieces. Knight d4 isn't as appealing just yet, but I think it might not be a bad idea to go for this b5 idea. So I don't want to let my opponent know where I'm castling, so I think the move to play is just a6, rather than playing rook b8 and then committing this rook to having been moved. So this is just a move to see what my opponent will do. Will he play a4, giving me the b4 outpost? Or will he just castle and play normally? The other option, of course, is h3, at which I can just play bishop takes f3, and then if bishop takes f3, I play rook b8, just in time to get off the diagonal. But again, my opponent doesn't really have that much that I'm worried about. I might have a cool break at some point with e5, just challenging his f4 pawn, but I would probably want to be castled if that were to happen. But that could be an interesting idea with e5, and if f takes e, d takes e, and then play for the d4 square. So this could be interesting. But the e5 idea is probably less likely, since I want to be playing to keep this dark square diagonal, but also that would weaken the c5 pawn. So that idea has potential, but probably not positionally right. I think this b5 idea fits more into the position. And I mentioned earlier that this is a Benoni idea, meaning it comes from that Benoni opening where you play c5. And white's pawn, instead of being on d3, is usually on d5, and I have knights on d7 and c7. But I think this is a better case for me because while I don't have a target on d4 to attack, and while I don't have a way to maybe exploit, maybe an e6 push and then take on d5 like a normal Benoni, it's limiting how white can play, because usually in the Benoni, he can either play for a push in the e file, or he can try to control the c4 square after c takes d5, but he doesn't really have too much here. So now my opponent castled. I don't think I'm too worried about him having a kingside attack at this point, so I'm just going to castle. And if anything, this position really resembles a close Sicilian of sorts, and the only difference being that this pawn is on c4 and not on c2. Now he plays rook to b1 with the idea of pushing b4 himself, but this cannot be good for him. This is way too slow. I think I beat him to the 1-2 punch with rook b8. He can't play b4. I have two defenders, and as soon as he tries to push the b pawn, this dark square diagonal gets a lot stronger. So I think I'm just going to let him play that idea and let him realize what he's doing. So I'm just going to play rook to b8 with the idea of playing b5. If he plays a3, let's see, I play b5, c takes b5, a takes b5. If he plays b4, I mean, I could take, and then play knight d7, but then I also have an isolated pawn. Let's see if there's better. a3, b5, c takes b5, a takes b5, b4. Wow, he plays pawn to a4, so then what was the point of rook to b1? That's really weird. Okay, so I mentioned this kind of earlier in the opening when he played the e-pawn on the c-pawn and hadn't committed the d-pawn yet. But when you have these two pawns a file apart, but they're, at the same distance down the board from each other, they create a weakness on the square in between. This is an outpost. If I can get a piece here, that'd be really strong, right? But in this case, my opponent has a nice job of covering that square, but this b4 square presents new opportunity for me, and I think that this is too good to pass up. Just knight b4, I put pressure on d3. If he plays d4 himself, then e4 becomes weak. It's on the dark square diagonal. And I can still go for the idea of preparing b5 at the right moment. There's rook on b1. It's not quite clear what he's doing. And at the right time, I can play knight d7, put pressure on the dark squares. So that being said, I think I'm going to go for this, knight to b4. How is he going to respond to that? He doesn't have like a knight a2 move like he could have if the rook were on a1. This rook is just really misplaced here on b1. I'm not so sure as to what it's doing. So this is looking up. Another idea for me is, again, to play knight e8, knight c7, with the idea of playing b5, because then takes, and then he has the isolated pawn. I had a nice game with the symmetrical English as white, I want to say back in 2012, where I employed that idea. It's an easy game to play in the sense that you're just using this diagonal to attack the isolated pawn. Now he breaks the pawn structure with e5. Okay, so the idea is that if I take, c5 is bust, so I don't want to take. So is he encouraging me to go for my knight e8 idea? Knight e8, if he takes, I take back with pawn to protect it, protect c5. I'm not giving up the d5 outpost because of my knight on b4, and I'm going to go to c7. If I go to e8 and he plays d4, attacking c5, because then that would justify e5 for having blocked the diagonal. I think I just have b6. And then if he takes, while I have an isolated pawn here on the a file, I'm covering the b5 square. I've got the half-open file. My diagonal is very nice. I just have to look out for this d6 pawn. But if I can execute knight e8, knight c7, I can always push the d pawn as well after b6. Yeah, I'm going to go for this knight e8 idea. That was my original intention with the position, so why mess with that? So here I'm expecting d4, trying to close up the position, and then I think I can just play b6. If he goes for d5, then it's kind of like a weird Benoni structure, where he gets in this e-pawn move, but at that point I think I just have bishop takes f3, and then takes on e5, winning a pawn. Because in the tempo that he takes to retake, I can either play b6, or if he takes on c5, I can take with the e5 pawn again. So this knight on b4 is saving the day because it's on the outpost. So nothing really worrisome here is white. Okay, so I thought he might opt for this, but now I might have e6. He takes on b4. I'm not too happy about that. So if I take on d5, he takes on d5, I play knight to c7, I'm threatening b5. He has to protect d5. If he plays e6, he's losing a pawn. I'm threatening to win a pawn. This is a positional disaster. He has no easy way of defending d5 besides queen to b3, at which I can play b5, and now I'm just gaining space. Yeah, I like this. Knight c7. I wonder if he saw any of this, because obviously if he plays e takes d, you know, not only does he have the weak d5 pawn, but I have like a perfect Benoni structure, and he has isolated pawns, hyperextended pawns all over the place. These bishops here on e2 and e3 aren't ready to play in an open position. Meanwhile, my bishop on g4, if need be, can trade, and this bishop on g7, you know, it's going to be dynamite, you know, in a couple of moves when this diagonal opens, because this pawn on e5 will not last forever, with him having to defend on b3. So if queen b3, I mentioned b5, I could play bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, d takes e5, f takes e5, bishop takes f5, but then the problem is he might at the right time be able to play a move like d6 and open up the light square diagonal, and I'd rather him have no play than any play at all. Okay, so he played queen to b3, but the queen doesn't really belong here. He really needed to have looked for some sort of b4 push, but that just was not possible because of this weak d5 pawn. So I think here I'll just stick with my plan to play b5, and then I just gain space on the queen side very methodically. All right, b5. I have to keep an eye out for the time. A lot of people are wondering why I'm doing a lot more live chess videos now, but pretty much the main reason why is I'm trying to get better at playing in short time controls. I've got the state chess championships in a month, which are G60, which will really, you know, force me to calculate quickly. As a lot of the games I play are in sudden death time controls in the open section. So hopefully, not only with live chess videos like these, I can help you understand how to play chess better, but at the same time, you know, I can help improve my own skills as well. Now, this move is just really weakening. The reason why is it gives me the c4 square, and you know that's like an interference. I get to win the d5 pawn, I believe, if I get to pull this off. c4. If he plays queen c3, I have knight takes d5, and his position starts to fall apart. He has to play a move like queen to d2, and he's just down a full pawn at that point. Bishop on e3 is really bad. I don't even think I want to take it. My knight's doing really well. You know, at the right time, I might be able to take on f3 and then win another pawn. If I play c4, he has no way of being able to open up the queen side. So yeah, this is strategically has to be much better for me. So I just grab this pawn next, assuming he doesn't do anything crazy. I mean, I guess he could opt for bishop takes c4, b takes c4, queen takes c4, but then I'm materially better, and it's just a matter of converting the win, and I think that I can do that easily with d takes e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, because if he goes for the pin on the d file, I can just take the bishop. Okay, in this case, I just pick up a pawn, I'm attacking the bishop. If he plays a move like queen to e5, I think I have e6. I didn't want to jump on bishop to f5 yet, because I'm not convinced that I wasn't convinced that it would be that important, but you know, if he's going to give it, he's going to give it to me. And I guess now with all these light squared weaknesses after removing this pawn, I probably should have opted for that before, but hey, you know, a piece is a piece, right? So I'm just going to play bishop to f5. Yeah, I didn't see that with queen c2. I was so focused on the strategy of winning this pawn, but yeah, that's probably one of the things I want to be, you know, you want to be looking at too, like looking for forcing moves, every move. In that case, you know, I don't think he had anything better because he had to protect the bishop, maybe queen g2, but then I probably still have this bishop f5 movement. It's actually quite annoying. Okay, I'm just going to win material here. All right, how do I get this strategic win into a real win? Okay, so I could take on e5, and then he might be able to open up the half-open file. I'm not too crazy about letting him do that. I think the thing to do here is to try to find a way to continue pushing these queenside pawns. So I think I want to play queen d7 and then rook on f to c8 with the idea of playing b4 and then c3, getting a passer. The other cool thing that would do is when I play b4, I attack b3, and when he a4, and if he plays b3, I get c3 with definite passers. So I think this is the easiest plan. If he plays a move like queen to e4, attacking my knight, I just have e6, and good luck to him. If he plays e takes d6, he's just weakening his own pawns. So I'm just going to go for this. If I were him, I'm probably looking at a move like rook c1, so when I play rook on f to c8, I don't immediately have this b4 move. But okay, I play e6 here. There's no threat on this knight. This knight is like perfect for me. This is almost as good as that knight that I had on b4 in the opening. You know, if he takes on d6, he's just opening up the diagonal. I more than invite that, even if it gives him the e5 square. And he really has no play anymore. I'm just going to play rook on f to c8, b4. You know, he could take on d6. I don't even have to take back on d6 just immediately. Okay, this is a nothing move. He's probably just trying to solidify. There's no bishop at a5, so there's no need to really move the bishop. I mean, my only guess as to why he could play g3 is to move the queen or the bishop, but okay. So rook on f to c8. Okay, he takes. This is just better for me now. I'm just going to push both of my pawns. And he doesn't have a way. Like, originally in the line I was suggesting, I was willing to give him the pawn on a6 to mean I get a passed pawn, but now he doesn't even have that way to play anymore. And so, let's see, am I missing anything? If he takes on d6, there's no exposed targets. He can't take on e6 to try to win my knight. There's no h7 takes because there's no follow-up. Again, these pawns here in this fianchetto are just so strong, so I'm just going to push. And then I'll push c3 if he doesn't do anything about it. If he plays rook to c1, I believe I can still push. Takes, takes, takes. Yep, I can push. And everything is winning. Yeah. Okay, what is this move? I guess his idea is maybe knight takes e6, and if I play queen takes e6, he takes here, but then I can just play f takes e6, and there's no way to win the knight with the pawn protecting it. So I'm not worried at all about that. I'm just going to push. He's got to deal with this forcing move too. So if he wants to give me material, he can do that. Okay. All right, here, I think I could just push b3 and then push c2 and then just really cramp up his position. If he takes c takes b, that's fine. I can play knight takes. Rook takes is also good, but probably knight takes because that doesn't have to deal with after rook takes bishop b2. But, you know, that's minuscule at this point. Okay, he goes there. What's the threat? And I guess he's trying to protect, but I mean, I just have a passer now. And I guess my idea is to whip my knight around or something? He went here to try to occupy the d6 square. That's okay. I'm just going to take the pawn. I have no weaknesses. Alright. Maybe do I go for a queen trade now? Yeah, let's go for a queen trade. Oh, wait, no, that would be bad. Queen b5, queen takes b5, rook takes b5, knight d6. That would be game over. Okay. Alright, so maybe just knight to b4 will do the trick. If he plays knight d2, I can play knight a2 or something. Or even knight d3, that looks devastating. There's no rook d1 too in this position, which is why having this pawn on c2 is so strong. Okay, he's probably just playing for time at this point. Okay, can I even just give him the rook? If I check, I have the pin, can I queen? That's not the most practical move. But I can go on to a2 if he tries to block, and if he plays bishop back, I get the time to save the rook. That's okay. This knight's kind of annoying. I'd like to sack for it, but that might not be possible. I think I'm just going to go for rook c7, rook a7. Here, he's not attacking anything else. I do need to watch out for time. He plays rook to f2. Okay, I'm going to play rook a7, threatening rook to a1. And he goes into deep think. If he's not careful, I'm going to start playing bishop f6 and then force his knight back. All I have to do is just make sure he has no knight back and the knight f6 threats. But I think right here the most concrete thing to do is just play rook a1, knight a2, rook a1 anyways, because knight a2 I get to just trade pieces. The more pieces I trade, the more winning this endgame is. Okay, what's the threat? Is there a check? There's no check. Okay. He's just attacking the knight, so I'm just going to play knight to a2. Maybe next I can play like queen a7 check or something. Just get my queen on a better square. But trades first, definitely. Okay, he saw the check, but this is nothing. Takes, 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 takes. I'm just going to put my queen on a good square. If he moves the queen away, I go to a1. If he doesn't do anything, maybe I can go to a2. I can also play bishop to f8 now, because there's no threat of this fork anymore. Everything's looking up, and I still have plenty of time, 65 seconds. How else might he find counterplay? Okay, so maybe he goes for this idea. This is nothing. I just play rook takes, and this is good. All right, I'm just going to play bishop to f8. He's probably going to play knight to e4, maybe knight to c4. But this is all fine and dandy. Let's see. I only have so much time left on the clock, so I should probably move faster at a less casual rate. I don't know, I feel like in time control, you know, when you have less than a minute left, you should be so panicky, but right now I feel perfectly fine. I guess that has something to do with the position. Okay, if he's not careful, I might be able to take on b2. Maybe queen a2, bishop takes b2, and this is just good. The other idea is maybe I go queen a7, or rook c8. Everything is good. Any move I make is good. All right. He goes there. I'm going to go here. Now I just have too many threats. He has to give a piece away to have any chance at playing. But it's just not realistic at this point anymore. Everything, he's going to have to give a piece and at least the b2 pawn. And with the rook and the queen on the 7th, I can just take on h2 and he can just resign. You know, knight takes b3, queen takes b3, bishop takes c2 is losing, bishop takes c2, I can just play rook takes c2. He doesn't even get the b pawn. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to go here. How are you going to handle with that? I'm just going to queen next. He might try to go for some weird checkmate idea, so I'm going to get this diagonal before I queen. Just a little bit of prophylaxis for you. Okay. So he does this plan. This is fine. I can just play f5. Now there's no checkmate. If he takes, I can just queen. And then I'm threatening the knight. Everything's threatened. His queen's threatened. Yay. 32 seconds left. How much faster can I go here, guys? I'm just going to play queen to b2. If he plays knight c4, okay, fine. I'm still up a queen. Move it. Oh. That's with check. I'm in trouble. Okay, I got to move quickly now. Okay, let's check you. Oh, thank goodness, that's checkmate. And I break 1900s. That's a good day. Alright, well, the endgame there was kind of weird because I was just trying to beat time control. I took that way too casually. But let's go over this game, see what happens, see what I could have done better. My opponent, despite playing a really weird opening, gave me a respectable game. I don't know how to flip the board, but we can go from white's perspective. Okay, so here I played bishop to g4. This might have been too early, but I didn't want to commit yet. I didn't want to show my opponent what I was going to do because I didn't know if he was going to go for d3 or for d4. I thought knight bd7 was interesting, but then I'm blocking in the light squared bishop, so I just figured it might make more sense to just develop this guy. So he plays bishop to e2, that's fine. I played c5 at this point because I realized at this point he's either going to play d4 or he's not, and it's not going to be a 4 pawns attack, or at least how I expected it to be, so I just played this, and he opted for the this kind of pawn structure, which is okay. But he doesn't have any of the usual trumps, like playing the move d4 just yet. I mean, I always have knight c6, and I think I made it an important strategic decision here to play on the queen side. I've never actually played with this position here as black before because I haven't had a white play with this kind of move order, but I think the right idea was to go for this Benoni idea because I really show white that his long diagonal on the dark squares is really weak. He doesn't really have as much control as he would like to have on the queen side, and by playing a move like a6, I still have the option to castle queen side. I'm going to castle king side, but I'm just waiting to see, does my opponent castle king side or not? Because in order for him to attack, he needs to do something with his king. And because I'm going to attack on the queen side, I wanted to see, okay, maybe does that scare him away, and maybe does he castle king side? Which it does, so I castled. He played rook to b1, and I thought, okay, maybe he's playing for a3, b4, but he's going to have an isolated pawn. These positions are fairly easy to play. So I played rook to b8, and I was shocked to see a4 because this move has nothing in common to do with the move rook b1. And so I was perfectly willing to continue playing here in the sense that I thought I was better. So I just played knight to b4. I'm just taking advantage of the outpost. He can't really land a piece onto d5, and I didn't really have to distort my pawn structure with a move like e6 to do that. He has no easy way to kick my knight away from the square, and it's going to take him multiple moves to do it. And once he, gets rid of this knight, it's only a matter of time before maybe this knight or this bishop have, another cool feature. Maybe this knight gets to the square, or this bishop is exploiting this long diagonal, so he doesn't really have time to do anything about this. So he played e5. Which I thought was a little bit double-edged, but favored me because my plan anyways was to play knight e8 and then knight c7. So I thought that this just helped me, but when he played this move, knight to d5, just positionally, this has to be game over because of the amount of weaknesses he has. I thought maybe he's playing for d4, but I don't have to do anything. I can just play, b6 and then knight c7, and then just slow play the position. At the right time, maybe I take on d4 and then play b5, but this knight here on b4 is just so strong, and what can he do? Meanwhile, his pawn structure in the center is completely falling apart, and it's only a matter of time before I start exploiting these dark squares. This pawn will not last forever here from e5. So he plays knight here, and now I have a very serious advantage, and I played knight to c7, activating my knight, forcing him to do something about this pawn. I played b5. This was a poor move, and I think that this move, this d4 move, really sealed the deal. And on longer time control, I could have definitely done much better. But I mean, even if he plays a takes b at this point, I have so much control over the queen side. These bishops are just almost useless. This bishop, it's only a matter of time before this pawn leaves the square, and this bishop, it wasn't ideal in this kind of structure in the sense that there's no perfect square usually for this bishop. I mean, it turned out in this game f5 was perfectly fine, but if he plays h3 with the idea of playing g4, if I go to f5, I can always just take on f3, and I'm perfectly okay with that. He'll find that he'll miss this knight greatly once he realizes how poor his bishops are. So he played d4, and I missed the move bishop f5 because I was so focused on just improving my position. I just saw knight takes d5 attacking the bishop, but there can't be anything bad about this move. I think queen d2 was his last chance, but I think, as I said in the game, bishop f5, I like, and I can prepare for b4 and maybe like queen c7. There's just no easy way for him to undermine my center, and I don't even need to play e6 to protect this knight with the bishop on f5. So I was okay with this. Now I was materially ahead, and let's just go to the endgame really quick to see if I could have done anything better. I was definitely in time trouble there. But okay, I just used this idea. I just wanted to simplify, simplification, just trade down in a winning position. My passed pawns are just so strong here. This queen's very weak, But what I missed was him being able to get the passed pawn. You know, with the amount of time that I have, I just move fast, move fast, move fast. So okay, this f5 move, trickier than I originally looked, and I was, you know, I took this pawn and then I took this pawn because I didn't want to get checkmated with maybe an idea of f6 and move the knight and get away, but there's just no time to pull this off. So maybe instead of bishop takes b2, it would have been more prudent to have played queen takes b2. And then I can play bishop takes e5. I didn't have to waste the moves and still having an active queen. But I shouldn't be losing just yet. f5 is sketchy though. But it gets rid of all of his mate threats. Let's see. Is there an easier way to stop everything down the road? Takes queen. So this check was annoying. But I guess the thing is he can't queen. He can't queen because of this checkmate, right? This checkmate on h6, he just made it easier for me to checkmate him because there's no queen h5 to block, but even that's still losing. And if he takes on e5, I play takes e5. He could promote to knight, but I just play king f8, so I don't think it matters. I think even though I didn't see this with the 18 seconds left, this pawn isn't ever going to queen. I think he might have realized that, but he played the wrong defense. I mean, I guess the other thing too is if he plays queen to e8 and I didn't have this mate, I can just take his queen. And if bishop takes, well, then I have the second pass pawn. But obviously much easier to just checkmate your opponent, right? Okay. So this was a fairly interesting game, and I hope you guys learned a lot about playing against people who play, you know, awkward openings and short time controls. I guess the key theme is don't commit to something, especially when your opponent hasn't committed. So in this kind of a pawn structure, this is, unless he's going for d4 and e4, something is iffy, right? So it's just important to make sure that whenever you're making your moves in your opening, you don't show your opponent exactly what you want to do. And so I thought that this kind of play, this move order that I chose was the most accurate to stop my opponent from knowing exactly what I was doing. Meanwhile, I kind of knew what his plans would be, and I was able to develop around them, and eventually found this nice Benoni idea that essentially won the game and got the pass pawn that I needed to with a material advantage. Okay, well, it was fun. It was fun playing this game, and I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Isaac Steincamp signing off from the Chess Summit Network.